In this video, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 crypto coins by market cap. So these 10 from Bitcoin to Chainlink, I'll be ranking them from 10 all the way to number 1 at the end of the video. And I'll be ranking these by risk reward ratio. So what I mean by this is how much upside there is relative to how risky they are. So the best one would have high upside with low risk. And I also included targets for what I think they'll reach at the top of the cycle. And yeah, let's get into the video. So for number 10, I have Bitcoin. And this actually might be a controversial pick. And I'll explain why I think I put it at number 10. Right, obviously for risk, it's the least risky crypto asset. It's number 1 in terms of cryptos and market cap. And for reward, I have 2 out of 10. And I have a target of 350K. So the reason I put Bitcoin at number 10 is because I believe we are in the part of the cycle where we're going to see Bitcoin dominance actually falling. And I think we're going to get a similar thing to what happened here in 2021, which is called altcoin season, where the altcoins all outperform BTC. And that's why I have it last, because I feel like at this part of the cycle, BTC will underperform all the other assets. So that's the reason I have it as number 10. So for number 9, I have BNB, so the Binance coin, and this one's number 5. I'm also not including stable coins, obviously. So number 5, and the reason I have it here, so for risk, I put 3 out of 10 because it's quite established. BNB is backed by Binance, large distribution, a lot of users, so relatively low risk. It's a strong exchange, but I think it has limited upside. I have a target of 2.5K, and for reward, I put 4 out of 10 because I feel like for BNB, right, it was really like last cycle, it really took off. It went from, $2 all the way to 700, and I feel like this explosive growth can't really happen this time. It's already been very established, and it's one of the biggest meme coins by market cap. And I don't feel as though it has a strong narrative this cycle. I do think it's a decent coin, but from the other ones on the list, I do believe this has relatively low upside, just slightly higher upside than Bitcoin. So for Ethereum is what I have next. And for Ethereum, I have a target of 8K. And for risk, I put 2 out of 10. Right, it's the second biggest cryptocurrency by market cap, 300 billion. And everyone knows about Ethereum. Everyone knows about the amount of applications being built on Ethereum. A lot of companies are building on here. And in terms of DeFi, they have just so much activity and users already on this chain that they aren't really going anywhere. I know recently a lot of people have been very bearish Ethereum because it's just been doing so bad price-wise, but it's still such a strong ecosystem that it's hard for it to be risky at this point. That's why I got 2 out of 10 for risk. It powers DeFi, NFTs, and a lot more, and it's still growing, but it's not as explosive as it once was, especially when we compare it to newer chains, which will be further down this list, such as Solana and Sui, which I'll be talking about further along in the video. And for Ethereum, I have a target of 8K. I do believe that it will break out from this all-time high in 2021, and we'll see around 8K, which is decent for having relatively low risk, 2 out of 10. But again, we're not going to see as explosive growth as we saw in 2021, where it went from like $200 to almost 5K, right? So next we'll go on to my 7th one, which is Tron. So Tron is, further down the list. It's number 10 it's number 8 because we're not including stable coins. And for here, I think this one actually flies under the radar a bit. It has very strong on-chain activity, especially when it comes to stable coins. I do believe it's a bit riskier than BNB. It's less established than the Binance chain in terms of risk. So that's why I have 4 out of 10, while BNB is 3 out of 10. But I do believe it has more upside Again, it's under the radar, and a lot of people don't really understand this coin, but I do believe there's a lot of potential in Tron. And for Tron, I have a target of 1.5, which is pretty good upside from here. That's like a 5x, actually a bit less than 5x. No, a bit more than 5x, like 6x. I do believe this coin will do well, but I do believe there's coins that have better risk reward ratios than Tron. So next, I'll go on to the sixth one, which is Chainlink. For this one, I do believe has a bit more risk than Tron. A bit less established. But both of them, because Tron has been around for 2018. I guess it's similar to Chainlink. This is just my opinion, so I do think it's a bit riskier than Chainlink, but they've both been around for 2 cycles. And for Chainlink, it's critical for smart contracts. It has a lot of RWA applications, which in my opinion is going to be a big narrative this cycle. As a lot of people come in, new people come into crypto, especially banks and traditional businesses who are looking for these real world applications that smart contracts enables. And Chainlink is one of the coin's best and ecosystem's best designed to do so. And slightly better risk reward ratio than Tron because I believe it has a higher reward from these prices. Right, Chainlink is currently down quite a bit from something it reached in 2021. It went to like $53. So I do believe it has the chance to go higher from these prices, while something like Tron has actually gone up more and is like basically all-time highs, right? So that's why I have high reward for Chainlink, which and a target of $70, which would put it at about double the previous high, right? 30, actually not double, sorry, like 50% more, 40% more than the previous high. Next, I got XRP. So this is a coin a lot of people talk about. It's actually the third biggest by market cap now. And I have this as number 5 because, well, first of all, let's go over risk. So I have 4 to 10, something similar to, BNB and Tron in terms of risk. Not that risky since it's so established and it's been here for quite a while. It's actually been here, how long has it been here? It's been around for quite a while, ever since 2014. So it's a very established coin. And for reward, I actually have 7 out of 10, which is very high for a coin. Actually, no, I'm gonna change this and put 3 out of 10. And I'm not supposed to change things during the video, but I think this actually has the same risk as BNB. I don't know why I put 4 before. Anyways, and at the end of the video, I'll be showing you a chart where I visually describe all of them so you can understand that. So reward, I have 7 out of 10, and I have 7 out of 10 for a few reasons. First of all, I have because it's retail's favorite. This is just my personal opinion, but I always hear retail users, people who are not really in crypto, always talking about XRP. It has a very interesting narrative about banks utilizing it to do international transactions, etc. And I do believe that this narrative and retail adoption is huge because, as I mentioned in other videos, these parabolic moves that happen in crypto are often because of retail engagement. So you want to be finding what retail finds interesting. And in my opinion, XRP is a coin that retail loves. And that's why I have it as number 5. And I have unit cost bias as well, because a lot of people, especially retail, are just going to look down this list and they're going to see, oh, Bitcoin, 104K, I can't afford that. 2.5K, that's expensive. And then they see $2.39 and they're like, oh, wow, I can buy a lot of those. Let me buy XRP. Now, this may seem extremely simplistic, but trust me, a lot of people actually have this thought process. So buying the coin with a low cost basis is actually really important. All right, number 4, we got Cardano. So for this one, I have risk 5 out of 10. And I have a reward 8.5 out of 10. So the reason I have risk at 5 out of 10 is because it's not that risky, but it is riskier than XRP. This coin has been around for a long time, established coin. Has it been 2 cycles or 3 cycles? It's been here since 2018. So been here quite a while. So I have low risk. Again, I'm actually gonna change this to 4 out of 10. My bad for changing things, but I realized that this should actually be a 4 out of 10. And then reward, I have 8.5 out of 10. And I have it here because it's a very hated coin, in my opinion. A lot of people really don't like when this coin goes up. A lot of people say the ecosystem is complete garbage. And I also have it 8.5 out of 10. And I'll mention more on this point because if people hate a coin, it's likely to do well because you see more people talking about it. They're getting pissed off that it goes up and then it makes the price go higher and then they get more pissed off. And it's like a cycle that keeps happening. And it's something that really happens, for instance, with Fartcoin, how people get pissed off this thing goes up and that makes it keep going up, right? So that's actually a big positive for the coin. Part of the US Reserve, it's the smallest coin by market cap, part of the reserve. So that's huge. It's a US coin. And then a unit cost basis, as mentioned before, a lot of people look down the list and they see, XRP, $2. Whoa, Cardano's cheap. It's less than $1. I can afford that. Let me buy that, right? Again, simplistic, but a lot of people think like this. Number 3, Solana. So I have Solana risk out of 10. Same risk as Ethereum, which actually some people might disagree with. How is Solana the same as Ethereum? And I believe that the amount of users, developer activity, and applications being built on it, as well as how established it is when it comes to building retail products and where retail users are, it has the same risk as Ethereum, right? They're just so established and it's the go-to place for builders to build if they want to get users. And for reward, I have 8 out of 10. So I have a target of $1,000. So it's fast, cheap, a lot of activity, especially in meme coins. Too many developers to make it risky, and it's very undervalued relative to Ethereum, right? You have the same risk as Ethereum, but it has much more upside because I believe this thing is actually really undervalued relative to ETH, right? 90 billion relative to 300 billion, while having, more users. It actually beats Ethereum on a lot of metrics such as transactions and users, right? And it's overall better for retail as it's cheaper and faster than Ethereum. So, reward 8 out of 10, very high reward with little risk. That's why it's number 3. And then number 2, I have Dogecoin. So in my opinion, I made a video on this, but I think meme coins will outperform every other asset this cycle. And everyone, even not in crypto, knows about Dogecoin. So when retail comes into crypto, they will do the same thing as mentioned earlier. They'll look down the list and they'll look for things they know that are not Bitcoin as they want to outperform Bitcoin, right? And they'll be looking and they'll see, oh, I know Dogecoin, I've heard about it so many times. Let me actually buy this thing, right? And everyone knows what this is, and that makes it have the attention required to go to very high market caps while being relatively low risk. So 4 out of 10. Obviously, it's a meme coin, so I'm not going to put something lower. Obviously, it has very narrative and speculative driven characteristics to it. But I believe the reward is extremely high for this coin because everyone knows about it and it's the number 1 meme coin. And I believe meme coins will outperform everything else. Target, we have 1.6, currently at 22 cents. So a lot of upside from here. And I believe this will be one of the top performing coins. And it has the second best risk reward ratio, in my opinion. And for number 1, we have Sui. So I'm sure everyone's heard about Sui. And in my opinion, it's the strongest new L1. We've seen a lot of new L1s come out this cycle. What's some examples? Whatever. There's a lot of like Berachain and etc. There's a lot of new ones, and in my opinion, Sui is the best new one. And and this is the reason because the reason I chose this as number 1 is because it looks like Solana last cycle. So Solana last cycle, I actually have a separate video on this if you want to go more in depth. But Solana last cycle had a huge narrative about being the fastest and cheapest new blockchain, and people didn't want to miss out on the next best technology when it comes to blockchain ecosystems. And Sui is coming out and saying, where we have, we're more scalable, we're quicker, we have better latency, and there's also a lot of great applications and projects being built on Sui. And in my opinion, the narrative of having the best tech is a huge narrative. That's why I have reward 10 out of 10. It's obviously riskier than Solana because it's less established, less users and activity, but it's growing extremely quickly when it comes to liquidity, when it comes to volume, when it comes to users on the chain. And it looks like Solana last cycle, I already mentioned that. And I have relatively low risk, but it's higher than Solana obviously because of the amount of users already on the chain and the amount of projects being built. It's not like you're buying something completely new that hasn't had any been battle tested at all, right? And for reward 10 out of 10, $40 market cap, sorry, $40 price target in my opinion, quite doable. It'd be something like here, and that might look crazy right now, but I'm sure it would have been crazy right now if you looked here and you're like, I think it's going to go up here. People will think you're crazy, but in my opinion, this coin can actually achieve that price target. That's why it's number one, and that's why it has the best risk reward ratio in my opinion. So now I'll go over the chart so you can visually understand everything I've been saying. I did make 2 modifications during the video, so it's going to be slightly off. My apologies for that. But, remember we have Bitcoin here. And then for XRP, and the way you can look at this chart is look at the same, the same lines and say you see Tron, XRP, and Dogecoin all have the same risk. But in terms of reward, Dogecoin has high reward than both of them while having the same risk. So what you should do here, in my opinion, of course, not financial advice, you should buy Dogecoin over these two because it has better risk reward ratio. Similarly, you have XRP and Chainlink with the same reward, but one has less risk. So you should probably buy this one, right? That's the way this chart can help you make decisions. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Just my opinion as always.